Hello guys, this is Michael Peretti. This is my 265 project I'm going to be showing you. I'm going to really quickly try and show you guys what's going on, but it's a little laggy, so while it opens up, then I do that, and if I press shift, then my screen interprets outwards. Called that. Hopefully then didn't just be super laggy the whole time, but if it did, I'll explain it real quick again. Essentially what I've added was if I click the shift button, then the screen interpolates outwards, increasing your FOV. This is going to give you a wider area of view to see and look around, and gives the effect that as you're sprinting, your kind of canvas widens, and seen a lot in like games like Call of Duty and whatnot. And then for control, when I clicked control, I basically went really fast, and that gave the illusion that I was teleporting. I call that shade step. And implementing those two things took a long time. And then the door was just a quick little script I built up, and that has a box collider that triggers with the player tag. And when he enters that, I had two keyframe animations that go through nicely and bring this door down like a Doom style door, which is kind of cool. Um, Not everything happened the way I wanted it to, but despite there not being a lot of visual changes, I'm going to be spending 95% of the time on the code, because that's where I spent 95% of my time. And trust me, I did spend a lot of time reading, looking, and editing, modifying the code. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys is the update sprinting FOV. I don't want to waste your time, guys. I mean, it's already pretty late to be submitting this, so I'm not going to be explaining like every like code related outside of mine that much. I'll kind of dive into like at least like right here, I couldn't utilize this update weapon aiming function. This is to update the FOV for when you aim, that kind of transition, and there's animations happening behind that as well for moving the gun, I believe, into view, um, which is interesting. But I like something like that. I couldn't just replicate, like copy and paste from my update sprinting FOV. It had to be completely custom and different logic, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure it out. I came through a lot of different issues with this. One of them being that it has to be specifically, if I go to definition, or if I go to references, and then pull up, and right here. So it had to be in update sprinting. It had to be in late update. That gave me a lot of issues, a lot of stuttering problems. Additionally, I tried multiplying it by time.delta time a lot within the function in different places, and that didn't end up working. That caused more micro stuttering, um, which is not great, unfortunately. So let me find my way back. I'm in game constants. Weapon manager. It's down here, right? Yeah. But yeah, I had a lot of issues with this. Basically, to explain it though, we calculated target FOV, which is just our default FOV, which is 60. If I peek the definition, yep, 60 frames, or 60 F, which resembles field of view of 60, and then we're multiplying that by 1.3, and that just increases our default FOV a little bit to be our target FOV where we want to expand our screen to. We have sprint progress, which is going to be a clamped value between 0 and 1 of our initial time that is currently running when we enter this loop. And then, or not this loop, but this function, and then we're going to subtract that by our start sprint time, which is a boolean somewhere that I believe in character controller player input, not player. It's basically player character handling. It's a big method that handles a lot of um, things related to the movement of the character, player movement handling. Um, so that's a boolean check. Actually, I could go check for you guys. Why not? Let's peek definition. So private get and set. And is there another reference? Yeah. So down over here, and it's contained with handle character movement. We see there's some other things incorporated, not to get like too off track. I'm just gonna try and explain this as simple as possible, without like blabbering a lot. But we have character movement handling, which we're getting our sprint input, right? And then we have hold on, character movement handling. Yeah, so this is when we're checking to see are we holding, are we sprinting? Yeah. And then further down here should be a boolean capture status sprinting. Yeah, was sprinting equals to is sprinting, and was sprinting is a boolean. Alright, there it is. Alright, let's not get too, because I've made so many changes to this code, I don't even know where they are. I wish I had GitHub so I could like see the changes and show you guys there, but I'm gonna have to like scroll through like hundreds of lines of code and like, and that's not fun. But yeah, back to this. Essentially, we have our default FOV, target FOV, and then progress. I had a lot of issues trying to understand how lerp works. I definitely recommend people go look it up, but yeah, lots of issues, especially trying to navigate through the current architecture of this code base. Made it confusing. I didn't know where to put it in, and yeah, that all took time. So, but this check basically just, oh, are we, make sure we're not aiming, and make sure we're sprinting, and that's when we are going to be interpolating and applying this logic and setting it to set FOV. Which if I peek, it's setting, as mentioned in my PDF, it's setting both the character camera and the weapon camera simultaneously. That way we know that the weapon camera is independent from the player camera, because we want to render the weapon on its own by itself to prevent any like the weapon like phasing through walls and whatnot. So pretty cool. Alright, if I move on, I'll go into the shade step implementation. That was the other main feature. If you couldn't see it in the video because it was probably like lagging, then basically when I press the control button, it basically just jitters the player a little bit more forward, or it basically like teleports the player maybe like 3 tiles or something around there. Yeah. Would have definitely been cool to add some VFX effects to it and make it really more of a polished feature, but I guess that's why we have game programmers and then, artists who add cool art to it to make it actually look good. So, on private, yeah. This is my door. I'll get into this later. So if we start originally in game constants, this is how all the controls are being handled within the game. It's very weird and quite interesting, in my opinion, because it has nothing to do with what we've been learning. Typically we've been hard coding or been reading logic where controls are typically hard coded into set key down dot alpha 1 or whatever, right? And the W button, right, will be allocated to doing this control. Well, this isn't the case in here. This is all strings. So everything is a string, which is weird, and they're all constants. And the reason for this is we know that constants are not going to change and they cannot be modified. So they're always going to refer to the string shade set. And kbun shade name, it will be what we refer to it as. So I named my control shade step. I started here in game constants, and it is a string. And if we then go and go to references or go to, let's see, yeah, it's defined here. But if we go to references, so we have where we're referring to shade step, which is k underscore button name shade step, and we're making the a boolean check right here. If we're checking if the input is down, if this input can be processed, and the time is greater than the last control press plus 3F, which is my way of, I thought I did a coroutine. Alright, so I didn't end up doing a coroutine, This is how I'm preventing you from just spamming left control, because if you're just spamming left control, then you're teleporting every like nanosecond, right? No, we're gonna prevent you from clicking it every like 3 seconds or so. I don't know what this equates to in seconds, but probably 3 seconds. And then we go into here once this is true, and we go, all right, last control press, right? We're updating that, and we're returning it true. And this is just to allow the input. So last control press time.time is the way of checking when the button was last pressed, and if it wasn't over at least 3 frames, I believe, then you're not allowed to press it. Either 3 frames or 3 seconds. It's likely 3 seconds because I can't really spam it. So yeah, that's how this is working, and that's how we're reducing or preventing the player from spamming that OP ability where you could teleport a little bit. But if we go even further, that's not even the logic around around shade step. So I believe player character controller. Alright, so we have a boolean. Are we shade stepping? Let's go to implementation. Nope. Alright, let's go to references. Alright, right here. So this is our logic. We are simply checking. Did we get the input, which I'll show you how the input's all mapping together, but did we press the input that we're looking for, which is left control? Oh, it was the input was handled. Yes, true. Okay. Well, if this is true, if our shade step, if the button was pressed, if that's true, then we're gonna move the character velocity times 0.5. And I believe the way that the character velocity is working, which there's a lot going on, we're basically multiplying its speed very fast over the course of 1 frame, because this is coming in every frame, I believe. Every frame. This is when this is being checked, and it's increasing its speed so much so that it gives the illusion that it's teleporting, even though it's not actually just getting set a new transform position. Which is kind of cool, right? So we're basically the Flash. We're basically just moving insanely fast in the course of 1 frame, as so that when you reach the next frame, you get the illusion that you're teleporting. And this is great for a number of reasons, but the main reason is you don't want to teleport through walls. You don't want to clip through walls. And there's a check, I believe, somewhere in the character logic where it's going to check. There's some kind of either raycast going out, or there's some kind of check where it's like, oh, are you hitting something? Alright, then he can't do this. So basically we're preventing our player from going through walls because there's a predefined check for that, which is great and fantastic for us. There's some more logic that I wrote, just checking and making sure that we can't crouch and sprint at the same time, which is crazy. Let me just scroll a little bit more. Yep, so I mean, I'm missing out a lot of like the smaller details in logic, but those were the two primary features I implemented, which took a long time to understand all this, because there's so many little things to account for, but I don't want you to bore you guys to death. I hope you guys just understand that I did actually spend a decent amount of time on it. This is the door controller script. Um, yeah, you've seen this before probably. You're just checking another tag as it's player. Yep, trigger my open my door, play my animation, door open, and then set the rest of the parameters to basically 0 or null. And yeah, that's gonna open the door, which is pretty cool. Yep, so I went over shade step. I went over how game constants works. I went over the FOV changes and how they were an absolute mess to put together. I went over how I have Boolean checks for checking the states of sprinting to that links back to interpolating the FOV so you understand where you are. Oh, that was the issue. So really quickly, let me explain a really big issue that I had with this function right here. So the initial thing that I did wrong was when I was calculating default FOV, I was hard coding, or I'm sorry, I was referring to the current FOV, and that's not good. So whenever you're interpolating anything, you want to really make sure all your parameters are making sense. For me, I spent also, I encountered a lot of issues with this, but one of the bigger ones that finally ended up fixing it was I realized that my beginning FOV. So if I hover over this, you can see float A, float B, and float T, and it says linearly interpolates by between A and B by T. So if we think logically, A, right, if I set A to the current FOV, that's a dynamic value. Current FOV is constantly changing. So what I found out was happening was as I was interpolating on a scale on this line between 0 and 1, my A value was dynamically changing while I was interpolating. So imagine this. Every frame, you're running into the frame, you reach this update sprinting FOV change, and it goes, okay, let's interpolate, let's start. A is going to continue to progress on this line, right? A is going to set, instead of 60, let's say A gets to, in one frame, let's say A gets to 63 FOV, which is cool. It's interesting, right? We've reached 63 FOV and we're going to continue to go until we reach our target FOV, which might be something like 75. But by the time that we reach back into the frame again, right, by the time we reach back into when we enter this loop again, or this statement update sprinting FOV, we need to jump back to 63 FOV even if we are continuing to interpolate more than 63. So essentially what was happening was I was on, if you like, envision it on a number line, I was scaling my FOV, 63, and it continues 64, 65, and then I need to go back and I enter again, and the check is like, oh, our current FOV is 63 from the last time the frame ran. So we chop back, and that was causing a lot of stuttering, and there's a lot of other issues that were causing stuttering with this. So yeah, learning how to alert properly was definitely a cool time, but yeah. Alright, I'm going to call it there. I'll show you real quick. This is the little, if I just fly around, this is a little area I made. It's a little cool area, kind of, the magnets kind of worked well. I made a little door right there, slides down. Did you do anything over here? Wish I did. And then, oh yeah, I also added some, can't see them, but I added some VFX effects to the health pickups, which are right here. They're not currently active because the drops aren't active, but when they're active, then this glows, and yeah, maybe I'll just tag it on, and yeah, so their full FO should be here for. Alright, I don't know why, but they do work, I promise. But yeah, it's cool little glow. So all around, I definitely wish I did more aesthetically. I won't lie, but I did get caught up in the whole coding side of things, so I hope you guys understand that. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.